by Chaim Brovender, Rosh Yeshiva of the WebYeshiva, and we're going to learn a little bit about Parashat Mishpatim. Before I start, I want to mention that this shiur is given in memory of David Wicks, Zichrono Livracha, on his 9th Yortzeit, which is the 26th day of Shvat, dedicated by his loving family. David was special. There's no other word that I could use to describe him. His private, outstanding academic ability. He taught us all what exactly it meant to have friends. His feeling for friendship and for friends and helping out the people who he was able to help out was actually quite extreme and wonderful to watch. So we thank David always for teaching us about that. The Parsha of Mishpatim. Parsha of Mishpatim has to be understood in terms of its place. First of all, its place in the Torah. I mean, the Torah, contains hardcore Torah material. Do this, don't do that. And the Torah contains also history, stories about great personalities. And also, when it came to Matan Torah, there's a tremendous investment of space and material in the Torah about that event. It's so much of it has been stated in the Torah that it's hard for us to know where the story of Matan Torah begins and where it continues and where it might come to a close. So let's look at the parashiot first of the book of Shemot. Shemot va'era bo b'shalach. Shemot va'era, those 4 parashiot are the stories of Yitziat Mitzrayim. Stories of Yitziat Mitzrayim. We spoke last week about the fact that Yitro, the parasha of Yitro, and Yitro coming to the camp of Israel, is the beginning of the story of Matan Torah. Not only Am Yisrael, but the entire world seems to have a chelik, a portion in Matan Torah. Because when the Mashiach will show up, he will be able to change the world for everybody. And everybody will recognize the importance and the glory of the Torah, including all of the non-Jews, who will have this spirit of recognition brought to them by Yitro. Yitro is kind of representative of the world, so that they were there at the time of Matan Torah, and when the Mashiach makes his appearance, we expect them to respond. Can't be that the world will remain the same after the Mashiach comes as it is before there's a Mashiach. So there's a lot of diversity in the parashiyot, starting from Yitro. Then there's the parasha of Mishpatim, which is a parasha which lists many rules and dinim and halachot that that are part of the Torah itself. That's Mishpatim. After Mishpatim, Truma Tetzaveh, which is the Kitisa, is the parasha of the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf that Bnei Israel built, because they thought that Moshe Rabbeinu was not going to show up. The golden calf. Kitisa, and Vayakel Pekude is, again, a repetition of the parashiyot about the Mishkan, about the tabernacle. The Mishkan is told twice in these parashiyot, Truma Tetzaveh, Vayakel Pekude. 2 parashiyot before the story of the golden calf and 2 parashiyot after the story of the golden calf. So you could say that the giving of the Torah, like when did Moshe Rabbeinu teach Bnei Yisrael the Torah? Well, that was on Yom Kippur when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the Luchot for the second time, and this time successfully managed to start teaching Bnei Yisrael about their obligation as a nation. And their obligation as a nation was to build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. So I'll say again, the Parshiot of Matan Torah, let's go through them again. It starts from Yitro. Starts from Yitro, and the Parasha of Yitro contains the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments. After Yitro Mishpatim, which is a parasha that collects a lot of Torah information. A lot of Torah information, and we're going to look at that. We will be looking at that today. After Mishpatim, the Parshiot of Truma and Tetzaveh are a kind of a free discussion of building the Mishkan, followed by Kitisa, which is the parasha of the golden calf, followed by Vayakel Pekude, which are the parshiot of actually building the Mishkan, by the tabernacle, by Bnei Yisrael in their entirety. So you have, again, starting from Yitro, the Ten Commandments, then Mishpatim, then the Mishkan. Those are the three major contents. Besides that, there are stories in these parshiot, the story of Yitro and Moshe, his family, HaKadosh Baruch Hu inviting Moshe to come back up on the mountain and get the Torah. The story of the Avanim, the stones that Moshe Rabbeinu brought up the first time and the second time. There are various stories. So there's content, we might call it. There are stories, content and stories. But why is it spread out? Why couldn't we get the story in one go? Why does it have to be again and again? Well, in part, it's because that's how it happened. But there's another principle that was enunciated, as far as I know, originally by the Maharal, who said that, receiving a gift is not exactly like just taking something off a tree. To receive the gift, you have to be prepared. You have to be able to absorb. You have to be able to take in the information or the content of the gift and make it yours. You can't just pick it up and walk away. And so in Matan Torah, if you look carefully, you'll find that Matan Torah has preparatory stages. The stages that make it possible for Bnei Yisrael to absorb the Torah itself. Let's take, for example, the Aseret HaDibrot, which appear in the Parsha of Yitro. Yitro came because he understood something. Vayishma Yitro, he understood what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted of people in the world. He was the only candidate at the time, but he understood. So the Aseret HaDibrot, where is the preparation for the Aseret HaDibrot? So you know that at the end of the parasha of Beshalach, remember, Shemot V'Eira Bo Beshalach, the four parashiyot at the beginning of the book of Shemot, which tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. At the end of that, there is a different story, the story of the man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you'll be fed. You'll have what to eat, but there are certain restrictions that you have to follow. And as far as we are concerned, we all understand that the restrictions that you prepare before Shabbat, you take twice as much and then you eat on Shabbat. But if you take more on your own and you cook it on Shabbat, and that would not be acceptable. I mean, we know that what we're talking about with the man, what we're talking about with the man is Shabbat. It was one of the essential regulations, both on the level of practical observance and also on the level of understanding what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of us, is the man / Shabbat. So that the man represents the hachana, the preparation of Bnei Yisrael to receive the Aseret HaDibrot. Because Bnei Yisrael have already received the Torah. I know that Chazal also say that the pasuk Sham Samlo, Choku Mishpat, V'Sham Nisau, also in the Parsha of Bishalach, that Bnei Yisrael received some of the laws of the Torah before Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Ten Commandments. Because, as the Maharal pointed out, in order to receive something of great significance, something of profound wisdom, you have to be prepared. You can't just expect to sit down at the Torah and learn it and make it yours. But you have to have a preparatory stage. And the preparatory stage for Aseret HaDibrot was the man. The man is the essential Shabbat. In order to understand about the Torah, you have to prepare yourself for Shabbat. Later on, the Torah was given to Bnei Yisrael in the Parshiot of Truma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel, Pekudei. Somehow we'll divide them up, and that's the Torah that was given to Bnei Yisrael with repetition. Truma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel, Pekudei, that's the Torah that Bnei Yisrael was going to get. What was the preparation for that Torah? I think the Parasha of Mishpatim. This is the present directive that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Moshe Rabbeinu, but it's the future. It's always going to be the case. These are the rules. These are the regulations which you have to say, which you have to place before them. They're always in that situation, as we saw in the Parsha of Yitro. Bnei Yisrael are always waiting to be redirected by Moshe Rabbeinu. They're always waiting for Mishpatim. Asher tasim lifneihem. It always happens again and again. So that it seems to me that the Parsha of Mishpatim, if you look at it carefully, is the introduction to Matan Torah. Of course, it is Torah. The Parsha of Mishpatim is Torah. But the Parsha of Mishpatim is also the introduction to Kabbalat HaTorah, which Moshe Rabbeinu brought down after 40 days, the second 40 days on the mountain. 40 days and 40 nights, didn't eat or drink, sleep. Eila Mishpatim, the Parsha says, Asher tasim livneihem. The word ve'ele doesn't necessarily have a limit. It could mean these and none others, or it could mean as a model. This is the model. There are mishpatim shabayim alechem, which means that even though Moshe Rabbeinu is not there, the spirit of Moshe Rabbeinu, the understanding of Moshe Rabbeinu is there. We are constantly being sustained by the representatives of Moshe Rabbeinu in our generation. And this is a very popular theme in Chassidut. So it seems to me that Ve'ela Mishpatim is an introduction. It's an introduction to Matan Torah because it explains away the question of Yitro, which was what will happen if Moshe Rabbeinu dies and Bnei Yisrael disavow their allegiance to a new leader and say, who is this new person who is coming? Eila Mishpatim is the answer to the question that Yitro asked and enables Matan Torah to take place because Eila Mishpatim formulates the relationship between the Torah, which is heavenly, and the people who have to take the heavenly Torah into their, and to absorb it into their own, to their self. So the Torah decided on the psukim of Mishpatim. All those psukim are introduction. Learn about all of these issues and problems and understand what you're getting. You're getting a kind of an opening to a more perfect kind of life, a more serious dedication to the desire that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has from us and for us. And having given this introduction, I want to turn to a few psukim in the parsha of Mishpatim. Perikav Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. Lo tisa shem hashav. Lo tisa shem hashav. Rashi quotes Kitargumo, quotes Onkelos. Lo tikabel shema ושקר. Don't accept the lie. Azhara lemekabel lashon hara. That is to say, lashon hara. Anybody who accepts lashon hara has to be vilified. L'dayan shelo yishma divrei ba'al din ad sheyavo ba'alat din chavero. And there are, in this parasha of Mishpatim, there are many references to Dayanim and to Emet. And this is one of the first of them. Dayan, and as far as the judge is concerned, Shelo Yishma Divrei Ba'al Din Ad Sheyavo Ba'al Din Chavero. You shouldn't listen to the argument of one side before there's a representative of the other side in the room. And then the pasuk says, "Tashet yadcha im rasha liyot eit chamas." You shouldn't. Eit chamas is a liar. He says, "Al tashet yadcha im rasha." Rashi, ato ein et chavero tzviat sheker. Again, rasha and sheker. Right, these are the things that the parsha is concerned with. Shivtichu to avtichu liyot lo eit chamas. He promised that he would be a lying witness. Okay, bad things. Pasuk bet lo tiyeh achar rabim leraot. Don't go with the majority if they are going in the direction of Ra. Al tashet yadcha im rasha. Lo pasuk bod lo tiyeh achar rabim leraot. Yesh b'mikra ze midrashay chachamim, chachmei Yisrael. There are many drashot on this pasuk of Alein Lashon HaMikra, meyushav behen al ofanav, but these medrashim don't appeal to me. I mean, you could say they're not really pshat. Mikan darshu, shein matin l'chova, b'achrat dayan echad. The Gemara learned that you can't, that the majority of one is not good enough with dayanim. B'sofa mikra darshu achrei rabim la'atot, and that's in the continuation of the pasuk achrei rabim l'ra'ot. V'lo ta'aneh al riv lintot, and then achrei rabim la'atot. Achrei rabim la'atot means, I mean, this is a principle that is in many areas of halacha, makes sense. Achrei rabim lahatot, achrei b'sof ha-mikra darshu acharav, achrei rabim lahatot, sheim yeshnayim b'mechayvin yoter al ha-mizakin. You need two judges more for guilty than for innocent. Atei hadin al pihem lechova, ubedinei nefashot hakatuv medaber. This pasuk is relating to capital cases. Capital cases be'emtza mikra darshu, and it's the middle of the pasuk which is important here. Lo tamod al riv, al rav, she'en cholkin al mufla shebebeitin. That sometimes you know that one of the dayanim is really special and shouldn't be argued with. Lefikach mitchaylin b'dinei nefashot, matchilin b'dinei nefashot min hatzad, laktanim shebehem shoalim tchila sheyomar da'atam. You ask the new judges, the ones who are not so experienced, what is your opinion? Lefi divrei Rabbeinu, kach pitron hamikra, lo tiyeh achrei rabim l'raot l'chayev mita. So lo tiyeh achrei rabim l'raot means that you should not, even if the majority is limited, is legal, and there's a real majority. But if it's only a very small majority, or it's a majority of people who are less learned than the people in the minority, so you have to readjust those principles. Pasuk Dalet ki tivga shor oyivcha o chamoro to'eh hashev teshivenu. If you find somebody's animal lost, you have to give it back to him. Pasuk Hey ki tir'eh chamor sonacha robetz tagat masa'o. If you see somebody's donkey having difficulty with his what he's schlepping, v'chadalta me'azov lo azov ta'azov imo. You should not turn away. You should go with him. Pasuk Vav, lo tateh mishpat evyoncha b'rivo. Mishpat evyoncha is a judgment of a poor person, right? Lo tateh here. One second. Okay, we're up to Pasuk Zayin. Up to Pasuk Zayin. You see that the Psukim are about proper action, how you should act and how you should be. So I want to skip now to Pasuk Tet. Pasuk Tet is V'ger lo tilchat, somebody who is somehow not doesn't have the status of a regular citizen. Lo tilchatz, do not oppress him. Vatam yedatem et nefesh hager. You understand about being oppressed in that way. Ki ger hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you are gerim in Mitzrayim. V'sheish shanim tizrat artzecha v'as savta et tevuata. So you see, that that if this is part of the introduction to Kabbalat Torah, it places a tremendous stress on Batei Din. Batei Din are places where the truth is established. Two people come to the Beit Din, and one says, "I owe you," he owes me money, and the second was, "I don't owe him money," and the judges are instructed to create a situation where the truth comes to light, where we are all understanding of the truth. And this is you might say that this is that the idea of truth is that there could be a truth that is accessible to people who know the Torah very well. In other words, being a shofet, being a dayan, according to these psukim, is not just a question of knowledge, of being able to make a determination that fits in to some halachic norm. But these people, the people who are responsible for the truth, are the people who are able to get to the truth. And that was an idea that was started by Yitro. Yitro said, "You will make dayanim, and you, Moshe Rabbeinu, will make dayanim, judges, and they will be able to impress Bnei Yisrael with the idea that they are close to the truth, that they know about the truth. And because they know about the truth, they will properly represent Am Yisrael." So that the Parsha of Yitro also turns out to be the preparation for the Torah, and the Torah that we're prepared for in the Parsha of Yitro is the Aseret HaDibrot, as I mentioned earlier. So that the Parsha of Mishpatim is involved in a different question. It says, if people do the wrong thing, can we ever know the truth? And the psukim say that the dayanim, that the people in the Beit Din, they can know the truth. And because there are dayanim and batei din, etc., the Torah could be given. And the Torah, the Aseret HaDibrot, which were given to Aseret to Moshe Rabbeinu, even though that was not long before, but before the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, they are part of the Torah, and they are not repeated really. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu comes down a second time with the stones, with the luchot ha'evan, but the first time is not repeated, so that the Parsha of Mishpatim, which follows the Aseret HaDibrot, when Bnei Israel already had some sort of understanding of what the Aseret HaDibrot were. So I just wanted to, it's occurred to me that it would be good if we would see about this matter of Sheker and Ra. The Aseret HaDibrot, Perikav, Pasuk Yud Gimel says, Lo tirtzach, lo tinav, lo tignov, And then lo ta'aneh b'reacha et shaker. Again, in this seret that they wrote, one of the major transgressions, lo ta'aneh b'reacha et shaker. A lying witness is really a bad thing. You see here the Mishnah Masechet Avot, Perek Aleph Mishnah Yudchet, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. Al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omed, the world stands on three different things. It doesn't mean stands, but I translate it that way for the moment. Al Hadin, Val Ha'emet, Val HaShalom. Al Hadin, Val Ha'emet, Val HaShalom. Okay, Din and Emet are really the same thing. Din Val Emet. In other words, you should use the Emet or come close to Emet, because that's the way God created the world. They're accessible to us. Judgment, Din, Emet, and Shalom, they're all accessible to us. We can do that. We just have to focus on it. We have to remember it. So that you see, if you read the Torah, you find two kinds of people. You read the Torah, you read Chazal, you find two kinds of people. You find the people who do Ra, who do bad things, who lie in court. The judges are not as they should be, etc. But you also find Aseret HaDibrot Lo Ta'aneh B'Reicha Et Shaker. I mean, it was such an important thing. It's in the Aseret HaDibrot. Our expectation is that people do that. And then the Mishnah in Masechet Avot. I would like to remind you all of a halacha which is published. It's in the Gemara, but it's also in the Shulchan Aruch. Siman Samach Hey Seif Aleph. Mitzvah l'sameach chatan b'kala. There's a special mitzvah the Shulchan Aruch writes, as it says in the Gemara, to bring simcha into the world of the chatan and the kala. They should be sameach, right? V'leirkod lifneha, and to dance before them, or for her, v'lomar shehi na'ah b'chasudah. That's the song that you sing. She is beautiful. She is special. She's a glorious kala. Perush. Min vatisa chen v'chesed lipanav. That's part of the piyut. Chen v'chesed, those are nice words. Right? In Esther. Afilu eina na'ah. So the Shulchan Aruch says, even if she's not too good looking, or she's not that attractive, afilu lo na, you say it anyway. Hagar. Amatzinu sherabi Yehuda bar Eloi aya meraked lifnei hakala. He would dance before the kala to make her happy. Umevatlin Talmud Torah lachnasat kala, and we even stop learning Torah to perform this mitzvah of achnasat kala lachuppah. So it turns out that according to this halach, the Shulchan Aruch, he could lie. Lying is not forbidden, but it depends. If you lie in a way that takes you away from the emet, takes you away from the truth, it means it takes you away from the Torah. There's no doubt about that. it denies the existence or the continued existence of Torah. However, if you have a reason, if there's some positive reason to lie, so you can lie. One more example, Shmot Perek Aleph, the Vayom Melech Mitzrayim Lamiyaldot Evriyot Asher Shema Achat Shifra V'Shem Hashenit Pua. You remember that story? Vayom V'Yaletchem Et HaEvriyot, when you give birth, when you help the women give birth, the Jewish women, V'Raitem Alavnaim, and you see what the situation is. In Benhu V'Amitem Oto, if it's a male child, kill him. V'Imbat Hi V'Chaya, but the girls you can let them live. V'Tirena Hamiyaldot Et HaElohim V'Lo Asuk Asher Diber Alehem Melech Mitzrayim. So they followed the directive of Hashem. They didn't kill the male children. V'Tichayena Et HaYeladim, they let them live. V'Yikra Melech Mitzrayim Lamiyaldot V'Yomer Lahen Madu Asitem Hadavar Hazeh V'Tichayena Et HaYeladim. So Paro asked them, why didn't you follow my directive? Why didn't you kill the male children? V'Tomarna Miyaldot El Paro, so the Miyaldot responded. They responded. V'Yaldot El Paro Ki Lo Chadashim HaMitzriyot HaEvriyot. The Egyptian women are different than the Hebrew women, the Jewish women. Ki Chayot Heina B'Terem Tavo Alehen HaMiyaledet V'Yaladu. So that was kind of a lie, that they lied. They didn't tell the truth. They didn't tell the truth. And finally, one more example. The end of Sefer Bereshit, Vayitzavu Yosef lemor avicha tziva lifnei moto lemor. They told Yosef something that Yaakov said lifnei moto. Koto muli Yosef anasana pesha achecha v'chatatam kira'a gimalucha. Forgive them, Yaakov said. They said that Yaakov said, but Yaakov never said that. He never said that, and Rashi relates to that problem. So I would like to say this. In the laws that are given to Bnei Yisrael before they are asked to accept the Torah, which they're asked to do at the end of the Parsha Mishpatim, there's an emphasis on Emet. And that emphasis on Emet comes because the Dayanim who are asked to determine what's the truth, who's telling the truth here, who is the person that we should depend upon, and that there are people who can create the Emet, who are able to differentiate between the Emet and Sheker. That's what leads to the actual Kiyum HaTorah, because in every generation there are people who can answer the question of what does the Torah want of us in a particular situation, and we call that Emet. And that Emet is as good as the Emet of Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who established that after accepting the advice from Yitro, but Moshe Rabbeinu accepted the fact that there could be people who were his Talmidim, who could be the possessors of Emet, But we find from time to time that the Emet is not something which is universally something we hold from. Sometimes the Emet explains behavior and understanding, and sometimes it doesn't. So that even though the Torah is called Emet, and Yaakov is Tiferet, is Emet, even though that's true, the Emet is not always what we are interested in, but we kind of glorify glorify the sheker. We glorify the sheker. So if we take the words of Shifra and Pua as an example, Shifra and Pua, they just didn't tell the truth. And it appears in the Torah that they didn't tell the truth. So that means the Torah is kind of validating what they did, how they act. The Torah says at the end that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them a reward for what they had done. It means that it was a kind of a free will act. And yet it's recorded in the Torah. It's recorded in the Torah that they did it, and that they said what they said, and that they were not afraid of lying to Paro and telling him things that were not true. Well, it's an old question. Like, where did the lie, the sheker, where did the ra, where did it come from? Did it come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Hard for us to say, hard for us to imagine that a lie came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu kind of promoted lying, which is what the story of Shifra and Pua tell us. But I think it is possible to say that when we think of Hashem as being the creator of Ra, we don't mean absolute Ra like we think of Tov and Emet. Those are absolutes. But Ra, well, it depends. It could actually be good. It's not only that the Ra brings us down and makes it difficult for us to understand what we are doing in this world. But the Ra is really a mixture of Ra and Tov, and what we're supposed to do is kind of find a way of distinguishing between the Ra and the Tov, and that's what Shifra and Pua were able to do. And that's what we mean when we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu supported them, gave them this ability. They knew what Paro wanted, and they knew that they would not be able, generally speaking, to stand up to Paro, but they also knew that the future of Am Yisrael depended on them doing the right thing, avoiding the Ra in following Paro, and attaching themselves to the Tov that HaKadosh Baruch Hu presented them with. So that in the introduction of Mishpatim to the Torah, introduction of Mishpatim to the Torah, I mean, it's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I want you to know what it is that you're being asked to do. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks you to follow the Torah, but what is it that you're asked to do? Well, first of all, you're asked to follow the truth. And that's what the Torah is. Torah is the truth. But furthermore, you're asked to distinguish between Tov and Ra. Usually, it's always Tov that we try to go after, and Ra that we try to avoid. But apparently there are intermediate positions where the Tov remains special, unique, conclusive, but the Ra is not really there. The sheker is not really a sheker. In fact, it at times becomes the desired modus operandi. And that's what the Parsha Mishpatim, in part, of course, teaches us. I wish you a wonderful Shabbat. Be well.
Rabbi.